Okay, welcome back. This is week 3, and we've got another project for you. So let's jump into it. I'm going to switch views here, go off into the corner, and let's do a quick recap of what you did in class, because we're going to use some of that code, or we're going to modify it for your homework. We talked about data types, variables. We want to, instead of having numbers all throughout our code, we would like to represent them with variables so we can know what those numbers mean later on. We're not confusing ourselves. So kind of the emphasis on the classwork and the homework is to help you get in the habit of using data types. And we did the S.O.S project, where we started off with this bit of code where we didn't use any data types. We just have the LED going on and off, stays on for 2 seconds and goes off for 5 seconds. And I'm just going to make that bigger real quick so you can see a little better. And then we wanted to convert it to this, which was using our data types, in this case integers, and have our variables, and then tell what the variables stand for, what numbers they stand for, and then put our variables inside of our locations where we had our numbers. Now we're going to have our variables that can represent those numbers. And the point being, at least in this case, that if we want to change something, we can change it up here and automatically change it down here. So we have better understanding what's going on, better control of our program. And of course, what we did in class was the S.O.S, the ... dash, so forth. And so we made this really long program. We'll learn later how to clean this up and simplify it, but for now, it's good practice. And every single dot and dash we laid out here. Okay, so then that is what we previously accomplished. And now we are interested in our homework. And it says we're going to make 3 separate circuits and using 330 resistors, ohm resistors. And we're going to kind of do something similar to the S.O.S, but we're going to have the first LED, it's going to just flash once, and then the second circuit is going to blink 2 times slowly, and then we're going to have the third one blink 3 times. So we're going to do this building first. So let's go over to here. This is the Tinkercad layout. I only have 2 circuits built so far. I wanted to point out one thing. First off, here is one circuit right here. It comes out at 13, goes across through the LED from the long leg to the short leg, through the resistor, along this row, over to this rail, and then back to here, and finds its way back to the ground. Now both of these circuits, they're going to both end up in ground. So I wanted to point out that I have one ground wire going to this row right here, and then each circuit is just going to terminate into this single row. So I can have this loop right here coming around and then head back to ground. So they're going to share the ground, but they're going to have their own outputs. In this case, 13 and 12. And we can quickly add the third one. And our resistor. And it'll wire to ground. So now, let's finish this other part first. And I'm going to send this one, on my build, I actually use 5, 6, and 7. So I'm going to put this one in 5. So we're going to send some information out of 5 through the LED, keeping in mind that we've got one long leg, one short leg, heading back through the resistor. Everything's connected using our breadboard rules, going across here, and then we're all sharing the same ground, so we're going to head back down to here. So that looks pretty good. Now I've already went ahead and built this. So here's my circuit. Get my fingers out of the way somehow. And what I'd like you to do is actually pause the video. Let me do one more thing here. Make it a little bit easier. Let's make it bigger. There you go. Now we can see it better. What I'd like you to do, and this is going to take an eagle eye here, I actually made an error, intentional error in this circuit. And so pause it and look through my wiring. Now it's different from the Tinkercad one that's behind me, in that I used, what did I use, 5, 6, 7 instead of 11, 12, 13. But there's one error. Something in my wiring is wrong. If you can follow the 3 loops, I want you to intentionally try to follow them. So we'll go ahead and pause. Okay, I'll assume you've looked it over and tried to figure it out. You'll notice that the middle loop is missing a wire. There's no ground wire. There's a resistor there, but then it stops. It just ends. See if I can point this out. Try to hold this and point this out. Right there. Right there. It ends, and it doesn't go over to the ground. So I'm going to add that. I'll find a black wire, which I found. A big one. And I just sent it over to ground. So here's what it looks like with that extra wire in there. I know with all these dangling wires it might be a little hard to see, but do your best. Okay, I'd also recommend one more thing. As you build stuff, test it out, make sure it works, even before we write any code. So for example, and this is what a habit I get into. So I would build one circuit, and I want to make sure my wiring is correct and I've used the breadboard properly. So what I can do is that circuit, let's take a look at this. You can see what I'm talking about. So I'm looking at just this circuit. I'm going to build it just all by itself. So it's waiting for some code to come through here to turn it on, but I can just manually send some current through here. I can send 5 volts through there. I don't need to necessarily program it to do that, to test my circuit. Because on this side I got a 5 volt pin. So I can grab this one, maybe, and bring it all the way over to here and put that in, and then the light should go on. In fact, I should be able to simulate this. There we go. Now it went on. This is virtual, of course. But you can see it lit up. I'm just using this as my output, a 5 volt output, excuse me. So test these as you build them. Say, okay, that went on, great. Let's put it back. Come on. It's gonna be stubborn. I'm just gonna grab it again. I get this lag I seem to be getting a lot. And I do things and then it does what I wanted it to do a few seconds ago. Okay, then I go to the next one. Build it, take this wire, move it to 5 volts, test it out. Do the same thing with this one. Bring it down, test it out, so I can be confident. I say, yes, I know my circuit's good. Now I can go look at the code and mess around with that. So I have an error. I know it's a coding error and not a wiring error. Okay. Now, does your wiring have to be exactly like this? Did you have to put that resistor in F1? No. You could have been shifted over or whatever, but hopefully you're getting familiar with that. This is a canvas and we've got some options. But if it's exactly like that, that's okay too. Alright, so let's take a look at our code. This is the previous code we were working with. The dot, 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 dash, 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 dot, dot, dot. And those are our variables we used. But now we need to have just 3 LEDs go on. And have one go on 1 time, and the next one go on twice, and the third one go on 3 times. So we're going to adjust this a little bit. So follow along with me. This won't take us too long because we already got the basic outline right here. First off, we're going to need, I'm using pins 5, 6, and 7, digital pins 5, 6, and 7. So I'm going to modify that as my LED pin 7. And since I had 3 different colors of LEDs, I can't just say LED pins anymore. I need to define the color a little better. My first one, I'm using I'm using one of the colors you can't really tell really well. It's actually green, red, and blue. So my blue one is pin 7, and my red one is pin 6, and my green one is pin 5. So I've got to set up 3 data types. I'm going to call it LED. Maybe I just call it blue LED. Really fancy there. Blue LED is 7. We're going to do my red one is 6. And whoop, made an error, changed colors. And my green LED, we're going to make it be 5. Alright, make a little space there. It makes it a little clearer to see. And then, let's skip this just for a minute. Now you might have different pins you're using. Make sure you use the pins for your circuit. It's going to go down here. We got to tell the Arduino what's going to happen with those pins. So we're going to have the blue pin doing something. It's going to be an output. And we got to say, well, we have 3 separate circuits. So we have to tell what each circuit's going to do. We're telling it to the red pin. It's going to be an output. We're going to be sending either 0 or 5 volts out of that pin. And the last one here is the green LED is also an output. Alright, so now the Arduino knows to expect to send information out of those pins. And information to either, if it says they're digital, it's going to be 0 volts or 5 volts. So let's clean this up a little bit. We need, this is every time the LED goes on and off. So we're gonna have the first one go on once. So let's keep that one. Let's have that be the first one, the red one. So let's modify it. We need it to be the red LED. No, mine is the blue one. The blue LED. And then we want to go on. Now we got to worry about this timing stuff. Actually, let's go back to the delay time to do that last. Let's switch this one to the blue LED, and then we're going to want the red one to go on. It's going to flash twice. So let's fix that. That looks good. That's the first time. Then we're going to flash it a second time. So we need to have it go high and low again. And then we're going to come down to this one, and it's going to be the green one. We're going to do it 3 times. So we're going to take over these 3 sections of code that we used before. Here's the first one, first flash. The second one. There's the third one. Right? Hold on. First, second, we need one more. All right. And the rest we do not need. So let's grab these and we'll get rid of those, which wasn't a whole lot. I have my delay down there, my break in between before it starts over. Now we got to worry about the times. And I did specify that I wanted basically each one to do a different time. So instead of dot time on, we could probably do something for the blue time on, and blue time off. Put a little gap between that. So down here we got to fix that. I don't know if these are the values we want. That's pretty short. But let's do just have them go a little longer each time. We'll have the blue ones go, at least for mine. You can do whatever you want. I'll have the blues. Actually, let's have the blue go on for a long time, since it's only going on one time. Let's have it go on for like 1 second, and then go off just for 1/10 of a second. That looks fine. But I gotta switch this in here. I've got to make this to be blue time. Got to be spelled precisely, or it won't work. Blue time on, and blue, time, off. Looks exactly the same, looks good. Let's go to the next one. Let's just do the same process. Let's do red, time on, and red, time off. Let's make this one a little, actually I'm going to increase that one. The nice thing about this, when I have my variables up above, I mentioned this in class, above the setup, then any change here is going to affect everything in my program. We will see later I can actually make variables, do data types inside of my loops, and they're called local variables. And if I change those, I just change it right on the spot, right where that's happening. So we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to have everything right above the setup and control everything from up here. So if I change anything up here, it'll modify anything below in my program. All right, so I'm going to make that still 3 seconds. Give it a little while. And then we got the red one. Let's fix this. We're going to do red, time, on, and red. My finger keeps I like to make it uppercase there. Last one here. Red, time, on. Whoop, I almost blew that. It's off. Maybe I should be quicker here and just do this. You're probably saying, Mr. Brower, why aren't you doing that? Okay, so now it's going to go on and off twice here. This section and this section are going to control that circuit. And let's do 2 seconds. That looks pretty good. Give a little space. Now we got to do it one more time for the green light. So let's do green and green. That looks pretty good. Let's drop down to 1 second. So these last 3, I'm going to try to speed this up by just putting green here. Last time I retyped the whole thing, but that's okay. That one. There. I can hear my phone ringing. We'll let that ring and catch that later. Okay. So that looks pretty good. Let's check it. Everything seems happy according to our verification, verifying our code. And this will not be happy. I haven't plugged it in yet, so it's going to stay unhappy. It's not going to show us what communication port that it was trying to select because it's just sitting here in my hands. All right, so my circuit looks great. I tested each circuit as I built it, and my code, at least it's verifiable. There's no errors. I do have the 5 seconds delay at the end. I got to make sure I didn't point this out in the last section, but under void setup we have these opening and closing brackets. I had a few people email me their code and that was their error. This opening and closing bracket for everything that's in the setup, and the same thing for everything that's in the loop. You have to have an opening and closing bracket. A couple other errors I've seen emailed to me were forgetting these little commas. And some of the semicolons, they had colons instead of semicolons. But that's pretty much all I've seen so far. Most people seem to be doing pretty good, hopefully. So let's hook this thing up. I'm looking down here, plugging in my USB cable, and I'm going to plug it into my computer. There we go. I'll show it to you once it seems to be working properly. I got to make sure I've got the right board, and I've got to make sure I've got the right port, at least one it's happy with. And while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to show you one more thing. A comparison. Reminders are always good. Some people are using these. Actually, I think a lot of people are probably using the downloaded one. For some reason, my downloaded IDE is just super slow. The one at home is really fast, and the one at school is really slow. But in case you're using this one, the only real difference, this is not the same code, of course, but the only real difference that I need to remind you of is make sure you go to Tools, make sure that is Arduino Uno. I just opened this one up, so it found it, and I got to make sure it's looking at the serial port that I've got the Arduino hooked up to, which it found as well, but sometimes it doesn't. So it's a possible error. So I'm going to swing that out of the way, and let's download our code. Let's see what's happening here. Working. I even tried, while that's thinking about it, I even tried downloading the latest version, the 1.8.13. Your device is unresponsive. That might be because I opened this one up and probably thinks it's sending stuff to the other one. Let's just try it again. Hopefully that's it. Or I'll unplug it and plug it back in to the computer. Watching me have failures is really good. Unresponsive. So I'm reaching over to the computer and I'm going to unplug it and re-plug it back in. And let's go back to this. Try it a third time. Upload successful. So I would recommend trying that. Let's take a look. Now what's happening? I'll try to lift this up so you can see it. What you should be expecting. First one on for 3 seconds. Second one on for 2 seconds. Third one on. Oh, yeah, and of course flashing. I forgot about that. Waits 5 seconds. Goes back to start. 1 flash. 3 at whatever time I said. I'm going to go twice at 2 seconds and 3 times at 1 second each. Nice. Okay. So we got that worked out. Okay, hopefully you had some troubles and you're able to work them out. You'll learn a lot better when you have mistakes and errors. Then if everything actually goes perfect the first time, then you're probably not learning a whole lot. Oddly enough, that's kind of the way I look at things. Anyway, we'll see you next week. Email me if you have troubles, or I left something out, and just email me and I will get back to you. All right, take care.